Good morning, everybody. Happy 4th of July. Happy
America.
Tuesday. Happy birthday, America. It's a beautiful day out here. I got my buddy in the back there, Brian Hammond.
Everybody.
B Hammer Tackle. It's the first time we've got to fish together in forever.
Yeah.
And we said, hey, let's go out and let's see if we can't do a spinner video this morning. Brian and I, had everything planned perfectly. The fish had other plans.
Lack of cooperation.
Complete lack of cooperation is right. We got out here early this morning, even though I stayed up late and watched fireworks last night and drank adult beverages until midnight. I got up and we came out fishing. The lake this morning, even now, but the lake this morning was slick glass, not a ripple, not a breath of air. There are weed and vegetation out here, debris floating everywhere.
Yeah.
Masses of that eelgrass, that thin, stringy grass. Man, that stuff is a pain.
Tough to get through it.
We fished all morning long. We came out here and started jigging a little bit, and there's fish here, but we haven't done anything yet. But we were in 10 to 15 foot of water over grass, 4 different spots along the south shore this morning. And we did nothing but cast harnesses. Now Brian was fishing his with half a worm on the hook, and I was fishing mine with various plastics. Today, the natural outfished the plastic on the back of the harness, on the back of the hammer harness, 2-0. Brian had a smallmouth and a right on the verge keeper walleye, maybe a little short, and that was it. And we fished that from 5:30 this morning until 9 a.m. about 20 minutes ago. Solid. Like we weren't messing around. We found good cabbage.
Keep it clean, with everything floating. Found some better spots that were more, I think, sparse, to say the least, compared to
Come this way another
part of the
couple.
islands where we fished early this morning. Seemed to be a lot thicker, I mean, not to say that there wasn't fish there, but like anything, you're not going to get them to bite, when there's something on your line or hooked up, Nothing's ever completely weedless. In
the first spot, we had a hard time getting it back clean at all.
Right.
Couple spots we could really get through pretty clean, and you could bounce that off the stalks and you could feel it, but it still didn't translate into bites.
Right.
Now, hey, listen, fishing's fishing. We went out and gave it hell, and it's not necessarily a numbers game with the spinner in your hand. I mean, it's you're more hunting through those areas, and typically they're much bigger fish, better quality fish in those weeds.
Right.
And like Brian and I were talking, and I asked the question. I said, so I put a mark down on the graph where we hit those couple fish, and I said, now is it something where you would, because I think of fish in weeds as being solitary, but when you're down there underneath those weeds on the bottom, it's probably more open than we think, and
Sure.
And they could still school. A walleye is a schooling fish. They could still school in an area. We went back and drifted back over that spot where we had those 2 marks in the morning, and it didn't translate to another bite, but it certainly could have. And at some point you gotta just cover water until you get a couple bites, and then figure out, are there more in the area? Are there
just eliminate it together if you don't get bit, I mean, sometimes the thing that we're fighting was the boat direction, and then that lack of wind.
Yep.
And the amount of debris in the water, I mean, all those things play a big part how successful you'll be doing anything, right? So whether it be my tackle or anything we're throwing in the water.
Correct. And this morning there was a couple times where we weren't moving at all. Literally just sitting there and fan casting around the boat, and That's you're taking a big body of water and making it really small at that moment. And if they're not there, you could sit there theoretically, till you're blue in the face, and it's not going to matter.
Kind of like ice fishing.
Yeah, right. You're looking through one hole
Yeah.
in the ice.
Forcing something to come to you,
And so we did it, and we tried it, and it didn't work for us today. That we could have easily come out because we had our choice of everything this morning. We could have very easily come out and got onto a weed bed or whatever, an area, and just tuned them right up. It didn't happen today, but it will. It will. And these weeds, and Brian kept saying to me all day, the weeds that we really spent the time in were that big broadleaf cabbage that didn't have anything else in it as far as other kinds or other looking weeds mixed in with it. They were just clean cabbage, and you could see clumps, and so we were trying to cast along the edges and pick your angles. Fished a little heavier weight, trying to get it down in through those heavier pieces of cabbage, because once you get below the leaves, just like a tree, the trunk is down here, and it's usually pretty bare, the bottom, this much of it. So I imagine when that fish is laying on the bottom looking through the weeds, he's got pretty good visual a long ways away. If he looks up, he might not have it because he's looking back up into that cover. So we tried getting down to him. In some spots you could, in other spots you couldn't. We fished anywhere from a 1/4 ounce weight to a 1/2 ounce weight today.
And the fish came on the heavier weight.
Fish came on the heavier weight. Yep.
Definitely was helpful, but we weren't throwing as far out in the cover, just trying to minimize the contact with all the extra debris in the water, and try to be a little more successful getting through the fish instead of covering water sometimes, I guess.
And you hit those 2 fish in 3 casts in one spot.
Yeah.
We like I say, we went back and went back through it again, thinking that we were onto something, and it didn't translate. But
we did have that one spot. There was a lot of fish activity up on top. Couldn't really tell what they were. Looked like smallmouths maybe, but we weren't seeing the bait. They were pretty busy, but we didn't get bit in there. And I would think that would be one of those spots that should translate into a lot more bites. And we tried, religiously in that area.
Yeah, because we had activity on the surface all around us. And some were carp; you could see them splashing around. But what we were looking at were not carp.
Yeah.
They were coming up, and we're not sure either what they were eating, because we didn't have active bug hatches coming up, and we didn't see bait scooting around in there. Usually, if that's the case, even small bait, you'll see them bust